Elon is randomly awarding $1 million daily prize to registered swing voters who signed his PAC's petition supporting the First and Second Amendments. Federal law says it's a crime to pay people with the intention of inducing a reward and to cast a vote or get registered. But election law experts are split over whether his actions cross the line. See, I think this is just risk assessment by Elon. They're not going to come after him, and if Trump wins, it won't matter. His allies argue because he's not directly paying for registration, but for a petition signature, it's not illegal. It's very typical of him. This is a very typical risk he would take easily, including attacking Dominion systems, which I think is probably not a great risk to necessarily take. But go ahead, finish what you were saying about him.
It all comes down to incentives and the algebra of deterrence. The whole point of our criminal justice system is that criminals do the math, or when you're about to commit a crime, you do a math, and it's the following. The likelihood I'm caught times the potential penalty has to be greater than the potential upside. Mm-hmm. In certain key sectors and components of our economic system, the algebra of deterrence is all fucked up. And I'll give you a couple three stark examples. If I'm Meta and I know I sit on top of research that is showing that there is a direct correlation between usage of my platform and teen depression and self-cutting, and I continue to engage in this, or I violate my consent decree, and I knowingly violate my consent decree, I know that the likelihood I get caught, the delay and the size of the fine are vastly smaller than the upside of continuing to break the law. Yeah. In taxation, all really wealthy people have an incentive to be so fucking aggressive with their taxes because their taxes are so complicated, and the IRS has been till Biden so underfunded that the likelihood you'll get caught and the penalty are vastly overwhelmed by the amount of money you're going to save.
They can come get you. And
by being incredibly aggressive on your taxes. And now let's go to Musk. Who gives a shit if it's illegal? They're not going to put him in jail. They're not going to say to Trump, all of our election laws are the following: lie, cheat, break the law, get in office, and then it'll be embarrassing, and the election commission will fine you, and they'll shame your campaign manager, and you're still the fucking senator. So the incentives, until there's some sort of real risk that they can shut down, for example, all your media spending, if they say, okay, if this guy engages in this, he could go to jail, or the campaign has to stop all media spending. Like, you could get an injunction if it's really blatant. What incentive is there for Musk not to do this?
Yeah, I agree. I think everyone's like, can you believe I was been asked to be on? I was like, he doesn't care. He's not going to pay. If Trump wins, he's scot-free. This is a scot-free risk that he takes. And if he loses, she's going to have a hard time going after him, and she probably won't, right? And so I think our laws, especially election laws, do not anticipate shameless fucks. Like, they just don't. And this is Trump, and this is, as you're saying with the penis joke. It just, I think a lot of women, yuck, you. And I agree with you paying attention to him, but I think it brings to question whether he's cognitively disabled, and that's a negative. That is showing up on poll after poll after poll. Is he Biden too? Dirty Biden, essentially. And those numbers are showing some real resonance. We were showing off some stats about that. Is he too old to? And then therefore you're voting for J.D. Vance, who is paid for by Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, essentially. So I do think it's a risk for Musk to take, and he will take it because it will be advantaged. And if she wins, I think the risk will be problematic for him, but not fatal for him. He'll just behave. Although saying she hates Christians and stuff like that shows that he's also has some mental problems. I think the real quiet winner in this is Peter Thiel, and I think he will take down all of them because he's very sharp. He sits behind the scenes. He and Elon did not get along before this, by the way, at all, in a way that was significant. So I suspect if Trump wins, there's going to be one ugly fight going on among those people.
There's about a 1 in 3 chance, if Donald Trump is reelected, that he dies in office, just based on his age and his body mass index. That means there's a guy who was a mediocre entrepreneur, VC at best, served 4 years in the Marines, which he should be honored for, got elected to Senate, 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
And this guy is bought and paid for by Peter Thiel. It's not his service in the Marines. It's not, he's a smart guy. It's not his book. It's not any of that. There's 2 reasons that Senator Vance could be a heartbeat from presidency and basically the president. There's 2 reasons. The first is Peter. President. The second is Thiel.
Yep. That's the one I'm watching. I think Elon's in more trouble in a Trump presidency than a Kamala Harris. I think he's got issues and democratic issues of investigation and regulatory. There is going to be an ugly fight at the top there if Trump wins. I wouldn't want to be Trump. I think he's among some very difficult characters.
I didn't see that. That's interesting. I didn't see that. But because the way I see it, and again, it just always, in my opinion,
they're not going to get
I'd love to write a book called Incentives. I just want people connect the dots. But here are the incentives, and this is what's so dangerous about not immediately having a gag reflex around a move to autocracy. There's greater incentive to support Trump than Harris if you're famous or you're because here's the thing. If you're Elon Musk and you support Trump very, very visibly and Harris is elected, they're not going to punish your company. They're not going to put you in jail. They believe in rule of law. Donald Trump is saying, if I'm elected, I'm going to prosecute Google to the full extent, or Jews, it's your fault if I don't get elected. So all of the incentives are, okay, if I root for this clown and he doesn't win, I'm okay because the other side believes in rule of law. They're not going to go after personal persecution, but the autocrat might come after me.
I think that is what's exactly going to happen. That's exactly.
Say more. What do you mean, Kara?
I mean, I think Elon's in more trouble in a Trump presidency. I think he doesn't. He's the one who's sort of off. He's got obviously some not cognitive issues. He's really lost his mind in many ways, allegedly. I think Thiel is pulling all the strings here. Peter Thiel is quiet and deadly. Elon Musk is loud, and he just reminds me of some of these oligarchs that ended up not living.
But the whole point of a democracy, the whole point of having different branches of governments and members of Congress and 3 branches, and a military, a secretary of defense that comes from a civilian background, not a military. All of these things are meant to put in place checks and balances.
Yeah.
And we're about to, for the first time, I think, maybe there's someone else, where essentially you have one man, Peter Thiel, who could literally control the president. There is something Peter Thiel will never hear from a vice president or potentially a President Vance, something he will never hear is no. Ever.
Yeah. Cost him $50 million. He's the one I'm watching. I'm not watching Elon. He's just a ridiculous circus of a person, and I think it'll end badly for him. But Peter Thiel's the one I'm looking at.